Jake Martinez walked slowly through the cold metal corridors of Kepler 7 station. His boots made soft echoing sounds with each step. He carried his inspection tablet in one hand and a coffee cup in the other. It was Thursday morning, which meant it was time for his weekly rounds through the ship graveyard. He had been doing this job for 3 years now. Every week the same routine. Check the old ships that floated around the mining station. Make sure none of them were leaking fuel or radiation. Write his reports. Go home to his small apartment and watch old Earth movies until he fell asleep. Jake pushed through the airlock that led to the observation deck. Through the thick glass windows he could see dozens of dead ships floating in the darkness of space. Some were human vessels that had broken down and been abandoned. Others were alien ships that salvage crews had found drifting between the stars. All of them were cold and empty now, but one ship was different. Jake pressed his face against the glass and looked for it. There it was, floating about 2 miles away from the station. The ship that everyone called the Ancient. Jake had never seen anything like it before, and he had been looking at it every week for 3 years. The Ancient was huge, much bigger than any human ship Jake had ever seen. It was at least 10 times the size of the largest cargo hauler in the station's dock. The ship had smooth, curved walls that seemed to flow like water. When the station's lights hit it just right, the ship's surface seemed to shimmer and change color. Nobody knew where the Ancient had come from. Captain Lisa Brooks, who ran Kepler 7 station, said the ship had been floating here when the first human explorers arrived 20 years ago. Dr. Amy Rodriguez, the station's head scientist, had tested pieces of the ship's hull. She said the metal was older than anything humans had ever found. Maybe 50,000 years old, maybe more. Jake finished his coffee and walked to the small shuttle bay. He climbed into his inspection pod, a tiny one-person ship with just enough room for him and his equipment. The pod's engines hummed to life, and Jake guided it out of the station and toward the floating graveyard. He checked the first few ships quickly. An old mining vessel with a cracked hull, a passenger liner that had lost its engines years ago, a military escort ship that looked like it had been in a battle. All of them were exactly the same as they had been last week. Jake made notes on his tablet and moved on. Then he reached the Ancient. Jake brought his pod close to the massive ship's hull. Up close, the ship looked even more amazing. The surface was perfectly smooth, with no visible seams or joints. It was like the entire ship had been carved from a single piece of metal. But what kind of metal? Dr. Rodriguez had run every test she could think of. But the ship's hull was made of elements that did not exist on any human chart. Jake extended his pod's mechanical arm and touched the ship's surface with his scanner. The numbers on his screen were the same as always. No radiation, no energy readings, no signs of life. The ship was completely dead just like every other week. But Jake did not leave right away. He never did. Instead, he moved his pod even closer to the Ancient's hull. He turned off his engines and just floated there in the silence of space. Through his pod's small window, he could see his own reflection in the ship's smooth surface. Jake reached out and pressed his gloved hand against the window. If the glass was not there, he would be touching the Ancient directly. "Hello again," Jake said quietly. He knew it was silly to talk to a dead ship, but he had been doing it for so long that it felt natural now. "I hope you're doing okay out here. It's been a pretty normal week on the station. Nothing exciting happening." Jake told the ship about his week. He talked about the new coffee blend that had arrived on the supply ship from Earth. He mentioned the argument he had overheard between 2 miners in the station's cafeteria. He described the movie he had watched the night before, an old action film about space pirates. "I keep thinking about what you were like when you were alive," Jake said to the Ancient. "What kind of people built you? Where did you come from? What did you see out there among the stars?" Pete Johnson, Jake's friend who worked in the station's repair bay, often joked that Jake was obsessed with the Ancient. Pete said it was not healthy to spend so much time thinking about dead aliens. He said Jake should focus on real life, maybe try to meet someone at the station's monthly social events. But Jake could not help himself. Every time he looked at the Ancient, he felt something he could not explain. It was like the ship was trying to tell him something, like it was waiting for something to happen. Dr. Rodriguez had tried everything to get inside the ship or turn on its systems. She had used every tool and technique that human science could provide. She had even asked alien traders who passed through the station if they recognized the ship's design. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. Maybe your people are still out there somewhere, Jake said to the ship. Maybe they're exploring other galaxies, or maybe they found a way to live without needing ships at all. I hope they were good people like humans try to be most of the time. Jake looked at his watch. He had been talking to the ancient for almost an hour. His supervisor would not be happy if he took too long with his inspections. Jake started his pod's engines and began to move away from the massive ship. I'll see you next week, Jake said. Same time, same place. Maybe someday you'll have something to tell me. As Jake flew back toward Kepler 7 station, he looked over his shoulder at the ancient one more time. The ship floated silently in the darkness, just as it had for thousands of years before humans had even learned to make fire. Jake docked his pod and walked back to his office to write his weekly report. Ships checked. All systems normal. No changes from previous inspection. He filed the report and went home to his apartment. He did not know that this would be the last normal week of his life. He did not know that next Thursday everything would change forever. Jake woke up on Thursday morning feeling different. He could not explain why, but something in the air felt charged like the moment before a thunderstorm. He got dressed and grabbed his usual breakfast of protein bars and coffee. As he walked through the station corridors toward the shuttle bay, other workers seemed more nervous than usual. Strange dreams last night, said Maria Santos, one of the station's engineers, as she passed Jake in the hallway. Kept dreaming about lights in space. Jake nodded but did not think much about it. People on space stations often had odd dreams. The recycled air and artificial gravity could mess with a person's sleep patterns. He climbed into his inspection pod and ran through the usual safety checks. Everything looked normal. Jake guided the small ship out of the station and toward the ship graveyard. The stars looked the same as they always did. The dead ships floated in their usual positions. But as Jake approached the ancient, he noticed something that made his heart race. The ship's hull was glowing. Not brightly, but there were definitely soft lights moving along the smooth surface. The lights pulsed in slow, steady patterns like a heartbeat. Jake had never seen anything like this before. In 3 years of weekly visits, the ancient had never shown any signs of activity. Jake brought his pod closer to the massive ship. His hands shook as he reached for his communication device. Kepler 7 Control, this is Inspector Martinez, Jake said into his radio. I'm seeing unusual activity on the ancient. The ship appears to be showing lights along its hull. The response came from Captain Brooks herself. Say again, Martinez. Did you say the ancient is showing lights? Affirmative, Captain. Soft lights moving in patterns along the entire surface. I've never seen this before. There was a long pause. Martinez, maintain your distance and continue observing. Do not attempt to make physical contact with the vessel. I'm sending Dr. Rodriguez to your location. Jake wanted to move closer, but he followed orders and kept his pod at a safe distance. The lights on the ancient's hull grew brighter as he watched. The patterns became more complex, almost like writing that moved and flowed across the ship's surface. Then Jake's equipment started acting strange. His radio crackled with static. His navigation computer showed numbers that made no sense. The air in his pod felt warm and tingly. Suddenly, the static in his radio cleared, and Jake heard something that made his blood freeze. A voice, a woman's voice speaking clearly through the interference. Finally, the voice said, "A worthy one approaches." Jake's hands gripped the controls of his pod so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Who is this? Who's speaking? I am Arya, the voice replied. The words seemed to come from everywhere at once, not just through the radio, but somehow directly into Jake's mind. I have been waiting for so long, waiting for someone with the right heart to come close enough for me to speak. Jake's training told him to retreat immediately and report to Captain Brooks, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. Arya, are you inside the Ancient? I am the Ancient, the voice said. Or rather, I am the consciousness that guides this vessel. I have been sleeping for many thousands of years, waiting for a species worthy of contact. The lights on the ship's hull pulsed brighter, and Jake felt a warm sensation in his chest. It was not painful, but it was definitely real. Something was happening to him at a level he did not understand. I don't understand, Jake said. Are you alien? Are you artificial intelligence? Arya's voice carried what sounded like gentle laughter. I am what your people might call the uploaded mind of my species' greatest explorer. My people, the ethereals, learned long ago how to preserve consciousness beyond the limits of physical bodies. Before we departed for higher realms of existence, we left behind ships like this one to test emerging civilizations. Jake's pod shook slightly as energy waves pulsed from the ancient. Test them for what? To see if they possess the qualities necessary to inherit our legacy, Arya explained. For millions of years, my kind searched the galaxy for species with the right combination of curiosity, courage, and compassion. Most species we encountered were either too aggressive or too passive. They either destroyed themselves or were destroyed by others. And humans? Jake asked. I have been monitoring your species for over a century, Arya said. At first I was not sure. Humans can be violent and destructive, but they also show remarkable dedication to protecting others, even strangers. Even enemies sometimes. This quality is rare in the galaxy. The warmth in Jake's chest grew stronger. Why are you telling me this now? Why not contact our leaders directly? Because leadership often corrupts the very qualities that make a species worthy, Arya replied. I needed to speak with someone who came to me out of pure curiosity and kindness. Someone who talked to a dead ship every week for 3 years simply because he hoped someone might be listening. Jake felt his face grow hot with embarrassment. You heard all of that? Every word. Your genuine care for others, your wonder about the universe, your dreams of exploration. These are the qualities my people valued most. Suddenly, alarms began blaring from Jake's pod. His radio crackled with urgent messages from Captain Brooks. Martinez, get back to the station immediately. We're detecting massive energy signatures approaching from deep space. Jake looked at his long-range sensors and felt his stomach drop. Dozens of large objects were dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. They were moving fast and heading directly toward Kepler-7. Arya, what's happening? Jake asked. The alien consciousness's voice became urgent and serious. My awakening has sent a signal across the galaxy. Others have detected it. Others who do not want emerging species to join the cosmic community. Who? They call themselves the Devourers. They have been hunting down and destroying young civilizations for millions of years. They cannot allow humanity to gain access to ethereal technology and knowledge. Jake's hands flew over his pod's controls as he prepared to return to the station. How long do we have? Their fastest scouts will reach this system within hours, Arya said. Jake Martinez, I must ask something of you. Something that will change your life forever. Jake paused his preparations and listened. I can share my knowledge with you, Arya continued. I can transfer a portion of my consciousness into your mind, making you a bridge between humanity and the ethereal legacy. This will give your species the tools they need to survive what is coming. What's the catch? Jake asked. The process is dangerous. You may not survive it, and if you do survive, you will be forever changed. You will no longer be entirely human, but you will not be entirely ethereal either. You will be something new. Jake looked at his sensors again. The approaching ships had entered the outer system and were accelerating. Captain Brooks was ordering all civilian transports to evacuate immediately. Jake thought about Pete Johnson and Dr. Rodriguez and Captain Brooks. He thought about all the people on Kepler-7 station who were about to face an enemy they could not possibly defeat with human technology alone. If I don't do this, what happens to humanity? Jake asked. Your species will likely be enslaved or destroyed, Arya said quietly. The Devourers are patient and thorough. They will not stop with this system. Jake closed his eyes and made his decision. Tell me what I need to do. Jake guided his pod directly toward the Ancient's hull. As he approached, a section of the massive ship's surface began to shimmer and fade, revealing an opening just large enough for his small vessel. The opening pulsed with soft blue light, and Jake could feel energy washing over his pod like warm ocean waves. Do not be afraid, Arya's voice said in his mind. I will guide you through this process. Your pod systems will be protected while you are inside my ship. Jake flew through the opening and found himself in a vast chamber filled with flowing organic shapes that looked more grown than built. The walls curved and twisted in patterns that hurt his eyes if he looked at them too long. Everything glowed with the same soft blue light he had seen from outside. Welcome aboard, Arya said. Please exit your pod. The atmosphere here is safe for humans. Jake hesitated for a moment, then opened his pod's hatch. The air smelled clean and fresh like mountain air after a rainstorm. He stepped onto a floor that felt warm and slightly soft under his boots. The surface seemed to pulse gently like he was walking on something alive. This is incredible, Jake whispered, looking around the chamber. How is this possible? My people learned to grow our technology rather than build it, Arya explained. Everything you see here is alive in a sense. The ship is not just my vessel. It is part of me. As Jake walked deeper into the chamber, shapes began to appear in the air around him. Holographic images that showed him scenes from across the galaxy. He saw beautiful worlds with purple skies and silver oceans. He saw cities that floated among the clouds. He saw creatures that looked like living light dancing through space. "This is the ethereal civilization," Arya said, "or what it was before my people transcended physical existence. We spent millions of years exploring the galaxy, seeking knowledge and wisdom. We learned that consciousness itself is the most precious thing in the universe." Jake stopped walking and stared at an image of beings that looked almost human, but with elongated limbs and faces that seemed to glow from within. "These are your people?" "This is what we looked like in our physical forms," Arya confirmed. "But we learned that the body is just a temporary vessel. Consciousness can exist independently, can grow and evolve beyond the limits of flesh and bone." The images around Jake changed, showing darker scenes. Massive black ships with angular designs swept across star systems, leaving only dead worlds behind them. Creatures that looked like a nightmare mixture of machine and organic tissue swarmed over planetary surfaces. "The Devourers," Arya said, her voice filled with ancient sadness. "They believe that consciousness is a disease to be eliminated. They think the universe should return to a state of pure matter and energy, without thought or emotion or dreams." Jake watched in horror as the dark ships destroyed civilization after civilization. "How many species have they wiped out?" "Thousands, maybe millions. They have been doing this for longer than my people existed in physical form. They are patient and thorough. They wait for species to develop space travel. Then they strike before those species can develop effective defenses. But some species must have survived," Jake said. "Some must have fought back successfully." "Very few," Arya replied. "Most species are either too aggressive or too passive. The aggressive ones destroy themselves before the Devourers even find them. The passive ones are easily conquered. Only rarely do we find a species with the right balance of strength and compassion." The images around Jake shifted again, this time showing scenes from Earth's history. He saw humans helping each other during natural disasters. He saw soldiers risking their lives to save civilians. He saw scientists working together across national boundaries to solve global problems. "This is why I chose to wake up now," Arya said. "Humanity shows a unique quality that even my people found remarkable. You call it heroism, but we called it the Guardian's heart. The willingness to sacrifice for others, even strangers, even enemies." Jake felt the warm sensation in his chest grow stronger. "Is that what you're going to give me? This Guardian's heart?" "You already have it," Arya said. "What I'm going to give you is the knowledge and tools to use it effectively. But Jake, you must understand what this means. The consciousness transfer will change you in ways that cannot be undone. You will gain access to ethereal knowledge and technology, but you will also carry the responsibility that comes with such power." Through the ship's hull, Jake could feel vibrations as weapons fired somewhere far away. The battle for Kepler 7 station had begun. "We're running out of time," Jake said. "Yes," Arya agreed. "The Devourer scouts have engaged your station's defenses. Their main fleet will arrive within hours. If we are going to do this, it must be now." Jake walked to the center of the chamber, where a raised platform had begun to grow from the floor. The platform was covered in the same soft, warm material as the rest of the ship, but it pulsed with brighter lights. "Lie down," Arya instructed. "Relax your mind and trust the process. I will be with you every step of the way." Jake lay down on the platform and closed his eyes. The warm sensation in his chest spread throughout his body. He felt like he was floating in a warm ocean under a gentle sun. "The transfer begins now," Arya said. Suddenly, Jake's mind exploded with new sensations. He saw the birth and death of stars. He felt the movement of planets around distant suns. He experienced the joy of discovery as ancient ethereal explorers found new forms of life among the galaxies. But the transfer was not just about knowledge. Jake felt his body changing as well. His muscles became stronger and more efficient. His reflexes quickened. His senses grew sharper. He could feel electromagnetic fields and gravity waves that had been invisible to him before. Most importantly, he felt a new connection forming in his mind. A permanent link to Arya's consciousness that would allow them to communicate instantly across any distance. But the link went both ways. Jake could feel Arya learning from him as well, experiencing human emotions and memories that were completely new to her. This is what courage feels like. Arya said in wonder as she experienced Jake's memories of rescuing a fellow worker from a damaged mining shaft. This is what humans call love, she added as she saw Jake's memories of his family back on Earth. The transfer continued for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. When it finally ended, Jake opened his eyes and sat up slowly. The world looked different now. He could see energy patterns flowing through the ship's walls. He could sense the location of every object within miles of the Ancient. "How do you feel?" Arya asked. Jake flexed his hands and watched new nerve pathways light up under his skin like glowing tattoos. "Different, stronger, but still human, I think." "Yes," Arya said. That was the key. The transfer had to preserve your humanity while adding ethereal capabilities. You are now truly a bridge between our species. Jake stood up and immediately felt the difference in his body. He was faster, stronger, and more coordinated than he had ever been. But more than that, he could feel the ancient systems responding to his thoughts. He knew instinctively how to control the ship's movement, its weapons, its defensive systems. "The Devourers are entering the inner system," Arya reported. "Your station's weapons are having no effect on their shields." Jake closed his eyes and reached out with his new senses. He could feel the massive Devourer ships moving through space like sharks through water. Behind them came hundreds of smaller vessels carrying boarding parties. They don't want to destroy the station, Jake realized. They want to capture it. They want to study human resilience. "Yes," Arya confirmed. "They have learned that some species possess qualities they can use to improve their own forces. Human determination and sacrifice would be valuable tools in their war against consciousness itself." Jake felt anger building in his chest, but it was a cold, focused anger unlike anything he had experienced before. "Then we need to stop them. The Ancient has weapons that could destroy their fleet," Arya said. "But using them requires a terrible price. The pilot must merge completely with the ship's consciousness, becoming a permanent guardian but losing their individual identity forever." Jake thought about his friends on the station, about Pete Johnson and Dr. Rodriguez and Captain Brooks, about all the innocent people who were about to be captured or killed by creatures that wanted to eliminate consciousness from the universe. "There has to be another way," Jake said. "Perhaps," Arya replied thoughtfully. "Your human creativity might find a solution that we ethereals never considered." "What are you thinking?" Jake smiled as an idea began to form in his mind. An idea that combined human ingenuity with ethereal technology in a way that had never been tried before. "I'm thinking we need to call for help," Jake said, "and I know exactly who to call." Jake moved through the Ancient's corridors with newfound confidence. His enhanced senses allowed him to navigate the ship's organic passages, as if he had lived there his entire life. The ship responded to his thoughts, opening doorways and activating systems before he even knew he needed them. "I need to contact the station," Jake said to Arya. "Can this ship transmit on human frequencies?" "Of course," Arya replied. "The Ancient can interface with any communication system." "But Jake, the Devourers are jamming most transmissions. Your message may not get through clearly." Jake reached what appeared to be the ship's bridge, though it looked nothing like any human control room he had ever seen. Instead of chairs and control panels, there were flowing organic structures that pulsed with light. As Jake approached, the structures began to reshape themselves, forming something that resembled a human workstation. "This is incredible," Jake whispered, as he placed his hands on the warm, living controls. Immediately, his mind filled with information about the ship's systems. He could see every weapon, every defensive shield, every sensor array. The Ancient was far more powerful than any human vessel, but it was also more complex than anything humans had ever built. "Connect me to Dr. Rodriguez first," Jake said. The communication system activated, and after a few moments of static, Dr. Rodriguez's voice came through clearly. "Jake? Jake, is that you? Where are you? We lost your pod signal an hour ago." "I'm safe, Dr. Rodriguez," Jake replied. "I'm inside the Ancient. The ship is alive and it's been waiting for us to make contact." There was a long pause. "Jake, that's impossible. I've tested every system on that ship for years. It's completely inert." "Not anymore," Jake said. "Listen carefully. The aliens attacking us are called Devourers. They've been destroying civilizations for millions of years. The Ancient belongs to a species called Ethereals, and they left ships like this to help worthy species defend themselves." Jake could hear explosions in the background of Dr. Rodriguez's transmission. The battle for Kepler 7 station was getting worse. Jake, we need help now, Dr. Rodriguez said urgently. Captain Brooks ordered a full evacuation, but the alien ships are too fast. They're boarding our civilian transports and taking prisoners. I know, Jake said. That's why I need you to listen carefully. I'm going to transmit technical specifications to your computer. The Ancient has weapon systems that can stop the Devourers, but I need human help to activate them safely. What kind of help? Jake took a deep breath. I need you to create a resonance field using the station's power generators. The field will anchor my consciousness so I don't lose myself when I merge with the ship's weapon system. Merge with the ship? Dr. Rodriguez sounded confused and frightened. Jake, what happened to you in there? I'll explain later, Jake said. Right now, we need to save everyone. Can you do it? I'll try, Dr. Rodriguez replied. Sending the specifications now. Jake used the Ancient systems to transmit detailed technical information to the station's computers. The data included instructions for modifying the station's power grid to create a specific type of energy field that would resonate with Jake's enhanced consciousness. Incredible, Dr. Rodriguez whispered as she reviewed the data. This technology is centuries ahead of anything we have. Maybe thousands of years ahead. Jake, how do you know all this? I'm different now, Jake admitted. The ship's consciousness merged with mine. I have access to knowledge that humans weren't supposed to gain for many more generations. But the Devourers forced our hand. While Dr. Rodriguez worked on the technical modifications, Jake opened a channel to Captain Brooks. Captain, this is Martinez. I need you to coordinate an evacuation pattern that will draw the Devourer ships into a specific formation. Captain Brooks's voice was strained with exhaustion and stress. Martinez, where the hell are you? And how are you transmitting on a secure military frequency? I'm aboard the Ancient, Captain. The ship is active, and it's our only hope of winning this fight. I need you to trust me. Trust you? Jake, you're a salvage inspector. Not anymore, Jake said quietly. Captain, the alien ships are trying to capture humans alive because they want to study our psychological resilience. If you can use that against them, make them think they're succeeding, I can position them where I need them. Captain Brooks was silent for a moment. In the background, Jake could hear the sounds of battle. Human weapons firing. Hull breaches being sealed. People shouting orders. What do you need me to do? Captain Brooks finally asked. Stage a false retreat, Jake explained. Make it look like the civilian transports are heading for the outer system jump point. The Devourers will move to intercept them. Once they're in formation, I'll have a clear shot at their entire fleet. And if your plan doesn't work? Then we're all dead anyway, Jake said honestly. Captain Brooks gave orders to her fleet commanders. The few remaining human ships began what appeared to be a desperate retreat toward the system's edge. The Devourer fleet, sensing victory, moved to surround and capture the fleeing vessels. Meanwhile, Jake felt changes continuing to occur in his body and mind. The ethereal knowledge was integrating with his human consciousness in ways that surprised even Arya. This is fascinating, Arya said. Your species' neural structure is adapting to the ethereal data streams much faster than we predicted. Most species require generations to safely integrate this level of advanced knowledge. What makes humans different? Jake asked as he prepared the Ancient's weapon systems. Your emotional flexibility, Arya replied. Most species think in rigid patterns. They categorize everything as either good or evil, friend or enemy, possible or impossible. Humans think in spectrums. You can hold contradictory ideas in your mind simultaneously and find creative solutions that other species miss. Jake watched his tactical display as the Devourer ships moved into the formation he needed. They were taking the bait perfectly, surrounding the fleeing human vessels in a tight formation that would maximize their capture efficiency. Dr. Rodriguez, what's the status on the resonance field? Jake asked. Almost ready, came the reply. Jake, I have to ask, are you sure this won't kill you? No, Jake admitted. But if I don't try, everyone on this station dies anyway. And probably everyone on Earth eventually. Jake could feel the Ancient's main weapon system powering up. It was unlike anything in human science fiction movies. Instead of energy beams or missiles, the weapon created temporary rifts in space-time itself. It could literally tear holes in reality that would consume anything caught within them. But using such a weapon required the pilot to temporarily become one with the ship's consciousness. The human mind was not designed to handle that level of cosmic awareness. Without the resonance field to anchor his individual identity, Jake would be absorbed into the Ancient's collective consciousness forever. Resonance field is active, Dr. Rodriguez reported. Energy levels are stable. Captain Brooks, begin the final phase, Jake said. Make your retreat look even more desperate. I need those ships packed together as tightly as possible. Jake placed his hands on the weapon control interface and felt his consciousness begin to expand beyond his physical body. He could suddenly perceive every atom in the solar system. He could feel the movement of space and time itself. He could sense the Devourer's dark intentions like a cold wind blowing through his soul. Now, Jake whispered, the Ancient's main weapon activated. Space-time itself began to tear apart around the Devourer fleet. Reality twisted and folded in ways that human physics said were impossible. The enemy ships, caught completely by surprise, were pulled into a swirling vortex of distorted space that consumed them like a cosmic whirlpool. Jake felt his consciousness stretching across impossible distances as he controlled the weapon. For a terrifying moment, he thought he was going to lose himself entirely in the cosmic forces he was wielding, but the resonance field held, anchoring his human identity even as his awareness expanded to encompass the entire star system. In less than 30 seconds, it was over. The majority of the Devourer fleet had been consumed by the space-time rift. Only a handful of ships at the edges of the formation managed to escape back into hyperspace. Jake collapsed on the Ancient's bridge, his consciousness snapping back into his physical body like a rubber band. Every muscle in his body ached and his head felt like it had been split open with an axe. Jake! Arya's voice was filled with concern. Are you all right? I think so, Jake gasped. Did it work? See for yourself, Arya said. Jake looked at his tactical display and smiled. The space around Kepler-7 station was clear except for floating debris and the scattered human ships that had survived the battle. Captain Brooks, Jake called weakly. Status report. Martinez, I don't know what you did, but it worked, Captain Brooks replied, her voice filled with amazement. The alien fleet is gone. Completely gone. Our sensors aren't detecting any enemy ships within a light year of the station. Jake closed his eyes and allowed himself a moment of relief. They had won. Humanity had survived its first encounter with a galaxy-spanning enemy. But Jake knew this was only the beginning. Dr. Rodriguez, Jake said, I need you to prepare a secure communication link to Earth Command. We have a lot to tell them. 3 months after the battle at Kepler-7 station, Jake stood on the bridge of what was now called the Guardian's Promise. The Ancient had been renamed to reflect its new role as humanity's first step into a larger galaxy. The ship looked the same from the outside, but inside everything had changed. Human and ethereal technology now worked together in ways that neither species had imagined possible. The bridge combined flowing organic, ethereal designs with human control systems that Jake's friends could understand and operate. Dr. Rodriguez had led a team of Earth's best scientists in learning to interface with ethereal systems, while Captain Brooks commanded a new organization called the Earth Defense Alliance. Status report, Jake said as he walked through the bridge. His voice carried a new authority that came from being humanity's first guardian. The consciousness transfer had left him permanently changed. He was still human in all the ways that mattered, but he was also something more. Long-range sensors show no Devourer activity in this sector, reported Pete Johnson from the navigation station. Jake's old friend had volunteered to join the Guardian's Promise crew and had proven surprisingly good at operating ethereal navigation systems. The patrol routes are clear. Good, Jake replied. Any word from the search teams? Dr. Rodriguez is reporting success at the third cache location, said another crew member. They've recovered another ethereal technology archive. Jake nodded with satisfaction. One of the most valuable things Arya had given him was the location of dozens of hidden ethereal weapon and technology caches scattered throughout the galaxy. For millions of years, the ethereals had hidden these reserves for the day when a worthy species might need them. Now humanity was claiming that inheritance. Guardian Prime, came Arya's voice in Jake's mind. Even after 3 months, he was still getting used to the permanent mental connection they shared. I am detecting an incoming transmission. From Earth Command, Jake walked to the communication station and activated the quantum communication link that connected the Guardians' promise to Earth in real time, regardless of distance. This is General Kate Murphy at Earth Command, came the voice through the speakers. Guardian Prime, we have a situation developing in the Vega system. What kind of situation, General? Jake asked. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected Devourer scouts near Vega Prime, General Murphy replied. It's a human colony world with about 50,000 settlers. The local defense force consists of 2 patrol ships and a handful of fighters. They won't last 10 minutes against a Devourer attack. Jake felt the familiar cold anger building in his chest. Since becoming Guardian Prime, he had learned that the Devourers were not just destroying human settlements. They were systematically hunting down any species that might have had contact with ethereal technology. The battle at Kepler-7 had revealed humanity's new capabilities, making them a priority target. How long until the Devourer main force arrives? Jake asked. Our analysts estimate 6 hours, General Murphy replied. The Guardian's Promise is the only ship we have that can reach Vega Prime in time. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. Pete Johnson at navigation, Dr. Rodriguez at the science station, Captain Brooks at tactical, a dozen other humans who had volunteered to crew humanity's most advanced ship. All of them were looking at him with trust and confidence that sometimes made Jake feel overwhelmed. Set course for Vega Prime, Jake ordered. Maximum speed. The Guardian's Promise leaped into hyperspace, traveling faster than any human ship had ever moved before. The ethereal faster-than-light drive could cross the galaxy in days rather than years, giving humanity a mobility advantage they had never possessed. During the journey, Jake worked with Arya to review the tactical situation. The Vega system was important not just because of the human colonists, but because it contained one of the largest ethereal technology caches in this part of the galaxy. If the Devourers claimed it, they would gain access to weapons that could threaten all human worlds. Guardian Prime, Dr. Rodriguez said from her station. I'm reading something strange in the ethereal archives. There are references to other Guardian ships. Ships like the Ancient that were left behind by the Ethereals. Jake felt a surge of hope. How many ships? The records are incomplete, Dr. Rodriguez replied. But it looks like there might be dozens of them scattered throughout the galaxy, all of them waiting for the right species to activate them. Arya, Jake said mentally. Is this true? Yes, Arya replied. The Ethereal Council left many Guardian ships behind when we ascended to higher planes of existence. Each ship contains a consciousness like mine, waiting to test emerging civilizations. If humanity proves worthy, you could potentially activate an entire fleet. Jake smiled for the first time in days. How do we contact them? The Guardian ships will respond to a signal transmitted on ethereal frequencies, Arya explained. But the signal must come from a proven Guardian. Prime, the other ships, need to know that humanity has been officially accepted into the Cosmic Alliance. The Guardian's Promise dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vega system. Jake's enhanced senses immediately detected the Devourer scout ships hiding behind one of the system's outer planets. They were waiting for their main fleet to arrive before beginning the attack. Captain Brooks, what's our tactical situation? Jake asked. I count 12 Devourer scout ships, Captain Brooks replied. Their main fleet will probably be 10 times that size. Even with our new weapons, we'll be outnumbered. Jake closed his eyes and reached out with his consciousness, feeling for the ethereal technology cache hidden somewhere in the system. There it was, on a small moon orbiting Vega Prime. The cache was still sealed and protected, but Jake could sense the incredible power stored within it. Dr. Rodriguez, I need you to prepare an ethereal frequency transmission. Jake said, We're going to call for help. What kind of help? Dr. Rodriguez asked. The kind that's been waiting millions of years for someone to ask. Jake replied. Jake walked to the center of the bridge, where a new control interface had been installed. It was a hybrid of human and ethereal technology that allowed him to use his enhanced consciousness to control the ship's most advanced systems. Arya, help me compose a message that the other Guardian ships will recognize, Jake said. Of course, Arya replied. But Jake, you should know that activating other Guardian ships will create a permanent bond between you and their consciousnesses. You will become the coordination point for an entire fleet of ancient vessels. Will I still be human? Jake asked. You will be human, but you will also be more, Arya said gently. You will become the bridge between humanity and the cosmic alliance that the Ethereals once led. It is a great responsibility. Jake thought about the 50,000 colonists on Vega Prime. He thought about Earth and all the human worlds that the Devourers wanted to destroy. He thought about his friends on the Guardian's Promise who trusted him to make the right choice. Do it, Jake said. The transmission went out on frequencies that had been silent for millions of years. Jake felt his consciousness expand as the signal reached across the galaxy, touching the sleeping minds of dozens of Guardian ships. One by one, they began to wake up. "Guardian Prime," came a new voice in Jake's mind, a male voice that sounded ancient and wise.
"I am Thane of the Starfire."
"I have been waiting." "Guardian Prime," came another voice, this one female and musical. "I am Lyra of the Void Dancer." "We felt your call." More voices joined the mental chorus as Guardian ships throughout the galaxy activated their consciousness cores. Each ship brought unique capabilities and weapons that had been perfected over millions of years of ethereal exploration. "Welcome to the Alliance," Jake broadcast to all of them. "Humanity has been accepted as inheritors of the ethereal legacy. Will you help us defend the innocent?" The response was immediate and unanimous. "We will serve." On the Guardian's Promises tactical display, new contacts began appearing as the activated Guardian ships jumped to hyperspace and began converging on the Vega system. Within an hour, Jake commanded a fleet of ancient vessels that made the Guardian's Promise look small by comparison. When the Devourer main fleet arrived at Vega Prime, they found not a helpless human colony, but a fully operational Guardian fleet waiting for them. The battle was swift and decisive. The Devourers, faced with weapons and technology they had not seen for millions of years, retreated back into deep space. But Jake knew they would return with larger fleets and better preparation. The war for the galaxy's future had only just begun. "Captain Brooks," Jake said as the Guardian fleet took position around Vega Prime. "Signal Earth Command. Tell them that humanity is no longer alone in the universe. We have allies now. Ancient allies who have been waiting for us to prove ourselves worthy." Jake looked out at the stars and felt the consciousness of dozens of Guardian ships linked to his mind. Each ship carried the preserved knowledge of the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known. And now that knowledge belonged to humanity. The weekly visits to an ancient ship had become something much larger. Jake Martinez, salvage inspector, had become Guardian Prime of humanity's first interstellar fleet. The boy who had talked to a dead ship every week had grown into the bridge between species and the protector of countless worlds.